Welcome to the Ground Rules. This is a short series that we're doing where we discuss land-related topics. Today, I'm joined by Laura Taylor. She is a legal director in our construction team, and Joe Davies, who's an associate in our land team. I'm Lucy Haynes, a partner also in our land team. So we're going to be talking today about the Building Safety Levy. This is quite a hot topic for us at the minute, particularly on the Stratland side, as we're already seeing drafting going into the documents, particularly with some of the bigger house builders. But I think, Laura, the first thing really is, well, what is it? What is it and what's the purpose of it?
So the purpose of the Building Safety Levy is to try and raise funds to fund the cost of rectifying defects in properties which are ultimately adversely impacting the safety of a building, where there's no original developer that's taking responsibility. The government's aim is to raise around £3.4 billion over at least a 10-year period as it currently stands. And it's a way that the developers will contribute towards the cost of remedying these defects, rather than leaseholders or taxpayers having to pay the bill.
Okay, so I mean, it's another tax really on the house builder. We're seeing a lot of this at the minute. I know in particular, the house builders are feeling the strain, shall we say, of being battered, particularly I think with the recent sort of press and the suggestion that again, house builders are going to be in the firing line. So what challenges do we think this is going to bring to, well, developers, but just to house building in general, really?
Well, I think you've touched on something really important there, Lucy, to be honest with you. It's another tax on house builders. And obviously, you've got the residential property developer tax, which is obviously a 4% tax on profits exceeding 25 million. So your PLC house builders are already hit by a property tax that is obviously meant to cover remedial measures to existing developments. So again, they're going to feel like, why are we the only people within the industry that's obviously having to remediate for some of these existing buildings? They obviously got cladding, to which obviously is a big fire safety issue.
Yeah, and I think I don't think it's helped really by the suggestion as well, particularly in terms of planning. That they want to sort of start putting fines on house builders essentially, to if they don't implement their permissions quick enough. And I think this almost feels like another sort of levy to basically not to build. It's another consideration where they've got to think about, okay, in my appraisal I've now got to take into account this. And as I say, we're already seeing the drafting, because it could have a massive impact on some of it. And ultimately, again, it goes down to price then. So who's going to suffer? Is it going to be the house builder, or is it going to be passed on to the landowner? Because some of this is going to end up in a price chip.
I think that's what we're seeing, aren't we, to be honest with you? It's already been passed on to landowners, and there's talks of obviously the prices being deducted by whatever the building safety levy turns out to be. And obviously there's going to be a point of negotiation between the landowner and the developer as to where that comes out at. And it's how they approach that as well, to be honest with you. Obviously, we saw several types of ways to approach that, and obviously with fixed prices, obviously with payments coming off, deferred payments, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and there are a few ways to structure it, aren't they? And that's one for us lawyers to try and figure out what the best way of doing that. But I mean, what are we thinking? Is this the right move? Do we think that this is sensible, or is it just going to create more of a headache?
You've got to look what the government's target was, to be honest with you. It's to build 1.5 million homes within this parliament. So to create another tax is obviously going to be a barrier to achieving that in the long run, to be honest with you. And that's why it's coming for criticism from the house building industry. And there is obviously other stakeholders, like the product manufacturers, that haven't had to pay anything towards remediation of buildings at this stage, to which they should be probably being made to contribute towards remediation.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So Laura, what what's your view in terms of the contracts and the drafting that we're likely to see, and what's your predictions, I suppose, as to where we're going to end up with?
Yeah, it's a little bit of watch this space at the moment, because I think if we refer back to actually how the building safety levy will be calculated, and the discounts and the exemptions. Now, this is a work in progress. This is by no means the final position, and it's likely to change. But the actual calculation we're talking about is by reference to the location, the geography of which the development is, and it's based on the gross internal floor space of a building, including communal spaces, and the rates drastically differ. So if your scheme is in Kensington and Chelsea, you're looking at a rate of just over £100 per square metre. If you're in Hartlepool, for example, you're looking at £12 a square metre. And so that vast change in terms of the impact to developers based on the location of their scheme is going to really need to be considered. Does that mean we're going to see a peak in developments in those areas where the rate is lower because it's cheaper to do it at this point? Is it going to serve to as a disincentive to push on with schemes in those areas such as Kensington and Chelsea where there is that higher rate? So from a strategic, there'll be a cost benefit analysis in terms of what the return will be, and I think that could possibly impact the geography of some of the schemes that we're seeing across the country because of the manner in which this levy will currently be calculated. Another thing to bear in mind, I suppose, is the proposed discount if developments are on brownfield land. So if there's 75% or more of the land within a scheme that is brownfield, then there's going to be a 50% discount. So again, that incentive and the discount on the levy might influence the types of schemes that we're coming through and the strategy for developers moving forwards. I think something else that will feed into that is when we've got some clarity on what's included and what's not. So we know at the moment that build to rent schemes are going to be included, that PBSAs are going to be included. The exclusions are quite minimal at present. So it's internal refurbishments, it won't be attracted. Developments of less than 10 units or PBSAs with less than 30 bed spaces won't. But when we're looking at bigger schemes, most of them are going to be attracting this levy. So I think, yeah, definitely it's going to be impacting the viability of schemes. The other issue from a construction perspective that I envisage is you can't pay this levy in tranches. It's got to be paid in one go. And as it currently stands, a developer has to submit its specs to the local authority, and they'll get a response and confirmation of what the calculation of the levy will be within about 5 weeks. And that's got to be paid prior to completion of the project. And that's got to be prior to completion of the first phase of a project as well, if you've got multiple phases to your project. So from a construction perspective, that means a couple of things. One, it means you've got to have all your design done upfront, because you need to submit that to the local authority to get your confirmation of the levy. Question how then, if you need to make design changes, that's going to impact your floor space throughout the development, how that is dealt with. That might be something that developers and their design teams are having to think about. And particularly with HRBs, you can't move into occupation. You won't get your building control sign off if you've not paid the building safety levy. And so we need to think about how in the contract you define what completion is, ensuring that that's paid. So particularly with practical completion, and when your defects liability period starts, for example, you're not actually going to be able to occupy that building until this levy is being paid. So again, question marks around getting from gateway 2 to gateway 3 for occupation on a high risk building, but generally occupying any building, even if it's not a HRB and it's less than 18 meters. I think we need to be thinking contractually around conditions of completion and how we actually move to occupation so that return on investment is realised.
Really, when you put it all together like that, there's quite a lot to think about, and that's just in terms of from that kind of construction angle. But when you add in, us thinking about it from a land perspective and just thinking about, I mean, again, it comes down to sort of values, but also that's a lot of money on some sites to stump up right at the beginning. I mean, the cash flow, yeah, okay, you've got your PLCs that you can argue, oh, well, you know, they've got deep pockets and all the rest of it, but obviously they've got to account for all that money. So they may well have deep pockets, but they've still got to count the beans and tell everybody what they're spending the money on. So it's quite a lot of money to outlay, and it just increases that risk profile on a development, which is going to dampen the appetite, I think, for taking some of these developments on, and particularly perhaps some of the larger schemes that are going to attract that huge levy at the start. Does that then mean that they can only be developed by the big boys? I mean, that's also something that you know, perhaps, well, has the government thought of that? I don't know.
It all feeds back on whether you're going to reach that 1.5 million homes target
Yeah,
or not.
it does. It does.
So
It does.
something that was really interesting as well that I was speaking to a client about a few weeks ago was whether we're creating a two-tier housing system in terms of having affordable homes as obviously an exempt from the building safety levy. Obviously, then are we saying, well, we obviously haven't got enough open market units either, so we need to be building both affordable housing and open market units. And obviously this feeds into another issue that obviously registered providers at the moment obviously haven't got funding for affordable units anyway, to be honest with you. So we need to be building homes of all tenures and of all types really in England. So yeah, it's just a few issues that are thrown up by this.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you both for your time today. I think this is definitely going to be another watch this space, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how it develops. Particularly, as I say, you know, I think even in the last couple of weeks, the position's changed quite drastically, particularly in terms of what we're getting on our desk. So it'll be interesting to see how it carries forward. And as always, if anybody listening has got any questions or anything that they want to throw our way, then please do get in touch. Thank you.